My phone lit up at 8:03 on a Wednesday morning with a text from my brother that read like a business memo. Dad has been moved to Sunrise Care. We've handled everything. You no longer need to be involved. That was it. No call first. No conversation. Just 11 words and a period at the end like a door being shut in my face. I read it twice, standing at the kitchen sink with the water still running. My brother doesn't do warm. He never has. But even for him, this felt different. Clinical in a way that told me someone had coached the language. Someone who knew that the fewer words you use, the fewer words can be used against you. The thing is, my father wasn't at Sunrise Care. He was sitting at the kitchen table 12 feet behind me, eating toast and reading the weather on his tablet the way he does every single morning. His coffee was the same shade of dark he's made it for 40 years. His slippers were the worn blue ones my mother bought him the Christmas before she passed. He hadn't been moved anywhere. He was exactly where he always was, home. I turned off the faucet and didn't say anything yet, because my father was already watching me over the top of his tablet with the specific look he gets when he already knows something I'm just finding out. That look has never meant confusion. It has always meant patience. The patience of a man who spent 31 years running his own contracting business and learned early that the person who reacts first usually loses. On the table beside his coffee mug sat a small yellow legal pad. Not new, not dramatic, the kind you get at any drugstore, but it was covered in his handwriting. Neat columns, dates, and dollar amounts, and names. He'd placed a pen across the top of it like a bookmark. He hadn't shown it to me yet. He didn't need to. He just watched me and waited. I set my phone face up on the counter where we could both see it. Then I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. My brother texted, I said. My father nodded once and picked up his coffee. What did he say? I read it out loud. All 11 words. My father's expression didn't change. His jaw tightened slightly. That same small movement I'd seen my whole life right before he made a decision. Then he looked down at the legal pad and moved 2 fingers across it like he was confirming something to himself. He asked when. 8:03, I said. He turned the tablet toward me. On the screen was an email. It had come in at 7:51, 12 minutes before my brother's text. The sender was Greenfield Property Group. The subject line said, Walkthrough confirmation, Thursday 10 a.m. I felt my throat tighten. Walkthrough of what? I asked, even though part of me already knew. My father's voice was steady. This house. He took a slow sip of coffee and set the mug down with deliberate care. Then he slid the legal pad across the table toward me. I looked down at it. The first column was dates going back 4 months. The second column was names. My brother, his wife, a name I didn't recognize next to the word attorney. Another I didn't recognize next to the word realtor. The third column was notes in my father's shorthand, the same kind he used to write on job estimates. Brief, precise, nothing wasted. Caller ID blocked. 9:17 p.m. Mail opened, returned, resealed. Credit check, inquiry, my name. Not authorized. My hands went still on the page. He's been watching, I said quietly. My father tapped the corner of the legal pad. For longer than you think. I looked up at him. He looked back at me with that same unreadable calm, and I understood then that I had not woken up inside a crisis. I had woken up inside the last act of one. My father had been building something while I was busy caring for him, assuming the quiet around us meant safety. He had been keeping records. He had been paying attention to what my brother thought he wasn't. I picked up my phone and called my brother. He answered on the second ring, which surprised me. He'd been expecting it. His voice was smooth, almost gentle. The voice he uses when he wants to sound like the reasonable one. Hey. I figured you'd call. Where is Dad? I asked. My father's eyes stayed on me. He didn't reach for the phone. He just listened. He's being cared for, my brother said. You've had him long enough. It wasn't healthy. The two of you isolated out there. People were concerned. People. That word. What people? I asked. He exhaled like I was being difficult. Our family. His doctor. People who actually care about his well-being he paused, instead of keeping him dependent on one person. I looked at my father sitting 3 feet away from me with his coffee and his legal pad and his full, clear, deliberate eyes. Dependent. Who is the attorney? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. He hadn't expected that specific question that fast. We hired someone to help manage the estate planning. That's normal, he said. Dad's getting older. These things need to be handled before. Before what? Before things get complicated. I turned the legal pad slightly toward me and found the name I didn't recognize. The one next to the word attorney. Is it Harmon and Associates? I asked. The pause that followed was different from the others. Short, involuntary, the kind you can't practice out of yourself. Where did you get that name? He said. I kept my voice level. Is Thursday's walkthrough at 10, or has that changed? My brother's tone shifted. It lost the smoothness. Something harder came up underneath it. You need to stay out of this. This isn't personal. This is about making sure Dad is protected. From what? He didn't answer that. From me? I asked. You've been managing his finances, he said carefully. His accounts, his mail. That's a lot of access for one person. People could interpret that a certain way. People again. My father reached across the table slowly and placed 2 fingers on my phone, not grabbing it, just letting me know he was ready. I looked at him. He looked back, steady, a question in his eyes the same way he used to look at me before he let me solve a problem myself when I was young. Go ahead, that look said. Or I can. I pressed speaker and set the phone between us. My brother was still talking. I don't want this to be a legal situation, but if you make it one, hi son. I'd bribe it as son every but it. My father's voice came out even, unhurried, the way a man speaks when he has all the time he needs. The line went absolutely silent, not the brief pause of surprise. The longer, heavier silence of someone realizing the geography of a conversation has just completely changed. Then my brother said, Dad. That single word carried so much. Disbelief, recalculation. And underneath both of those, something that sounded almost like fear. I'm home, my father said. I'm at the kitchen table. I have been here all morning. My brother recovered faster than I expected. Dad, thank God. I was trying to explain to her that this arrangement isn't sustainable. You need more support than she can. I heard everything you said to her, my father replied. My brother went quiet again. My father looked down at the legal pad, then back at the phone. You said people were concerned. He paused. Which people called you? My brother's voice became careful. Several people, his doctor included. My father's expression shifted slightly, almost imperceptible. His doctor's name is Sandra Reyes. She's been my doctor for 11 years. She called me last Tuesday to confirm my appointment. He paused again. Did she call you? There was a long beat. My brother said nothing. My father continued calmly. Because if she expressed concern to you about my care, she would have documented it, and I would have a record of that conversation from her office. He picked up his pen and tapped it once on the legal pad. I don't. My brother's voice came back flatter. Dad, this isn't about one phone call. This is about a pattern of behavior. She has been isolating you. She screens your calls. She manages your money. I manage my own money, my father said. I always have. The realtor, my brother said, pivoting. I hired someone to assess the property value. That's not illegal. It's smart planning. My father's eyes found mine for just a moment. Then he looked back at the phone. Why is the walkthrough scheduled for tomorrow if you haven't spoken to me about selling? My brother tried a different angle. I have power of attorney. My father's jaw tightened again. The same small movement as before. You have a copy of a document I signed 7 years ago, he said. Before your mother died. Before I revised it. I felt my breath catch. I hadn't known about a revision. My brother's voice came back sharp. What revision? My father reached across and placed his hand flat over the legal pad. He didn't open a drawer. He didn't make a show of it. He simply said, I updated my documents 14 months ago. My attorney has the originals. You were not listed as a decision maker in the revised version. My brother's tone went from sharp to something I'd never heard from him before, a kind of cracking around the edges. That's not possible. You didn't tell me. I didn't need to tell you, my father said quietly. It's my name on the paper. My sister-in-law's voice appeared in the background then, muffled, low, trying to stay off the call. I couldn't hear what she said, but I heard the urgency in it. My brother covered the phone for a few seconds. When he came back, his voice had reset itself, smoother again, controlled. Dad, he said, I think we should talk in person. I can be there Friday. My father looked at the email from the property group still visible on his tablet screen. The walkthrough is Thursday, he said. That's tomorrow. We can reschedule that. Of course. Can you reschedule the filing too? My brother didn't answer. My father's voice stayed level. I received a letter from the county clerk's office 10 days ago, he said. An inquiry was submitted requesting an assessment of my cognitive status. He paused just long enough. It listed my primary residence as your address. Not mine. Yours. My stomach dropped so hard I had to put a hand flat on the table. My brother's voice came back careful, measured. That was a precaution. Standard. You listed yourself as my caregiver of record, my father said. I have not lived with you in 22 years. I closed my eyes for 1 second, because this wasn't about the house. This wasn't even about money. This was about establishing, on paper, that my father lived with my brother, that my brother managed his care, that I was an outside party with questionable access to a vulnerable man. That was the architecture. Once that was built, everything else followed from it. My brother tried again. I did that to protect you. From what? My father asked. It was the same question I'd asked minutes before. He already knew the answer. He just wanted it said out loud, on this call, with the phone sitting between us like a witness. My brother didn't say it. My father gave him 3 seconds. Then he spoke again. I want to tell you something, he said, in a tone so calm it was almost gentle. There is a notebook on my kitchen table. I have been keeping records since March. Every blocked call, every piece of mail that came to me opened and retaped, every inquiry made in my name that I did not authorize. He paused. The bank notified me in April when a secondary contact request was submitted on my accounts. That contact was not my daughter. It was your wife. The line was so quiet I could hear traffic somewhere far away on my brother's end. My father continued. I did not react in March, or April, or in June when the first letter came from your attorney. I waited. He looked at me across the table, because I wanted to know how far you'd go. My brother's voice came back hard now, the pretense of reasonableness finally stripped away. You have no idea what we've done for this family. While she's been sitting in that house with you, I have been. Building a case, my father said evenly. The word landed like something physical. We are trying to help you, my brother snapped. She's convinced you that we're the enemy. She has turned you against your own son. If you let her keep doing this, you are going to end up with nothing left to. I already know what I have, my father said. He touched the corner of the legal pad. And I know what I'm keeping. My brother went silent, completely this time. My father looked at the phone and spoke with the precision of someone who has chosen each word carefully and in advance. I'm calling my attorney this morning. I'm notifying the bank. And I'm contacting the county clerk to correct the address listed on that filing. He paused. If the walkthrough happens tomorrow without my consent, I'll be contacting the sheriff's office as well. A long beat passed. My brother's voice returned lower than before. Dad, you don't have to do this. You started this, my father said simply. In March. He ended the call. 1 tap, clean. The kitchen was quiet except for the refrigerator hum and the sound of a neighbor's lawn somewhere down the street. Normal sounds? Ordinary sounds that had nothing to do with what had just happened at this table. I looked at my father. He looked back at me with an expression I hadn't seen from him in years. Not anger, not triumph, relief. The relief of a man who had been carrying something heavy and had finally set it down in the right place. I didn't know about the revised documents, I said. He nodded. I didn't want you to have to protect them. My throat tightened. How long have you known? He looked at the legal pad. Since the phone call started. He turned it toward me so I could see the first entry. March 4th. A blocked number at 9:17 p.m. I called the phone company the next morning. He tapped the line. The tower ping traced to the city your brother lives in. I stared at the date. March 4th. I'd been in this house with him every day since then, and he had never said a word. He had simply watched and written and prepared. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. Because you would have called him, he said, and he would have known you knew, and then we'd have lost the record. He picked up his pen and uncapped it, and wrote the time at the top of a fresh line on the legal pad, 8:31 a.m. Then below it, call confirmed address filing, confirmed power of attorney claim, confirmed Thursday walkthrough. I watched him write and felt the full weight of what he had done. He had sat in this kitchen for 4 months, appearing to everyone who might check on him like a quiet old man going about his days, and he had been building a case the way he used to build estimates for a job. Careful, thorough, not one line wasted. His attorney's name was Dennis Park. He had been my father's attorney for 9 years and answered on the first ring when my father called. Harold, he said, I was wondering when you'd call. You knew they'd move? My father asked. I knew they were close, Dennis said. We had a contact inquiry on your trust file last week. Someone called claiming to be your healthcare proxy and asked whether the document was still active. My father's hand stayed still on the legal pad. Who called? Dennis paused. The name given was your son's wife. I looked at my father. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes went very still. She's not listed anywhere on that document, Dennis continued. I told the receptionist to confirm nothing and flagged it internally. My father said, "Can you meet us today? How soon can you be here?" We got into my father's car 40 minutes later with the legal pad, his tablet, and a folder he retrieved from the back of his closet. The folder was worn at the edges and labeled in his handwriting. Not dramatically, just a name and a year and a small check mark in the corner that told me he had looked through it recently. I didn't ask what was in it in the car. I just drove. Dennis Park's office was on the second floor of a small building near the county courthouse. Potted plant by the door, diplomas in plain frames. The kind of office that is deliberately unbothered by its own importance. Dennis was younger than I expected, mid-50s. With reading glasses he kept taking off and putting back on as he talked. He shook my father's hand with both of his. Then he looked at me. "You must be the daughter." "I am," I said. He nodded toward the conference table. "Good. You'll need to hear all of this." He already knew about the county filing. He'd pulled it up before we arrived. He turned his monitor toward us, and I saw my brother's name at the top of a form I didn't fully understand. Below it, in a field labeled Relationship to Subject, it said Primary Caregiver, Son. Below that, in a field labeled Current Residence of Subject, it listed my brother's address in another state. My father sat back in his chair and looked at it the way he'd looked at the email that morning. Not shocked. Just confirming what he already knew the shape of. "What does this filing do?" I asked. Dennis folded his hands. "In plain terms, it opens a process to evaluate whether your father requires a guardian to manage his affairs. It's framed as a protective measure. The filing claims he may be experiencing cognitive decline and that he has been isolated from family by a single caregiver." He looked at me. "You," he said. "You're the isolation." My jaw tightened. "That's not—" "I know," he said, and his tone was not unkind. "That's what we're here to establish." He looked at my father. "Harold, when was the last time you had a cognitive assessment?" 6 weeks ago, my father said. "Dr. Reyes. Routine." Dennis wrote it down. "Did she provide documentation?" "She sends me a portal summary after every appointment," my father said. "I printed it last week." He opened the folder and slid a printed page across the table. Dennis read it without rushing. Then he set it down and picked up his pen. "Here is where we are," he said. "The filing was submitted 8 days ago. It has not yet been assigned to a judge. That gives us a narrow window to file a counter-response with evidence before any emergency hearing is granted." He looked at both of us. The moment a judge sees this response alongside their filing, the character of the case changes completely. "What do we need?" I asked. Dennis counted on one hand. "Proof of current residence here. Documentation of your father's cognitive status. Evidence that the claims in the filing are factually incorrect." And he tapped his pen on the table. "Any pattern of conduct on their part that demonstrates the filing itself was made in bad faith." My father opened the legal pad and pushed it across the table. Dennis looked at it. His expression shifted. He flipped through 2 pages, then 3. He looked up at my father. "You've been keeping this since March?" My father said yes. Dennis looked back down at the entries. The blocked calls, the mail tampering, the bank inquiry. His pen started moving. "This," he said quietly, "is the difference between a difficult case and a clear one. We were there for 2 hours." Dennis filed a response to the county record by noon. He attached my father's proof of residence, Dr. Reyes's cognitive summary, and a formal affidavit signed by my father in Dennis's office with 2 witnesses. The affidavit stated in plain language that my father resided at his home address, that he managed his own finances, that he had not authorized my brother as his caregiver, and that he had revised his power of attorney 14 months prior. My father signed it with the same handwriting he uses for everything. No shaking, no hesitation. Dennis looked at the signature and said, "For the record, 1 word. Good." On the way back to the car, my father's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it and listened for about 10 seconds. Then he said, "I'm aware. Please proceed. Thank you," and ended the call. I looked at him. He unlocked the car door. "That was the bank," he said. "They flagged an attempt this morning to add a joint account holder using a faxed authorization form." He got in and buckled his seatbelt. The signature on the form didn't match mine. I stood outside the car for a moment with my hand on the door because I needed 1 second to understand the full scope of what they had tried. Not just the county filing, not just the property walkthrough, not just the power of attorney claim, all of it simultaneously. The county, the bank, the property. 3 directions at once so that by the time one was challenged, the others might already be done. My father waited patiently while I stood there. I got in the car. How did you know they'd try all 3? I asked. He looked out the windshield. Because that's how your brother approaches a job, he said. He doesn't start something unless he has a backup plan. He was quiet for a moment. He learned that from me. I didn't say anything to that. We went home. We ate lunch. My father watched the news for a while, and I sat across from him and read and tried to let the ordinary sounds of the house do what ordinary sounds are supposed to do. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. My brother. I showed my father the screen. He shook his head once. Not yet. He got up and went to his desk in the back room and came out 5 minutes later with a small digital recorder, the kind that clips to a pocket. He set it on the coffee table and said, "Now." I answered and put it on speaker. My brother sounded different. The smooth control from the morning was gone. What replaced it was something thinner. A person trying to sound measured and not quite making it. "I need to talk to Dad," he said. "He's here," I said. My father leaned forward slightly. "Go ahead." My brother exhaled. "Dad, I want you to understand that everything I did was because I was worried." He paused. "Mom would have wanted me to look out for you." My father's face did something I had never seen it do before. For just one moment, something crossed it that had nothing to do with strategy or patience. It was grief. Old, familiar, still sharp. Then it was gone. "Don't," my father said quietly. "Don't what?" My brother's voice wavered. "Don't put your mother's name on what you've been doing," my father said. "She would not have approved of it." He said it without heat, just as a fact. The line was silent. My brother's voice came back, broken open. "I needed to know you'd be okay. I needed to know she was taking care of you, and not just what?" my father asked. My brother didn't finish the sentence. My father leaned toward the recorder on the table. "I have been okay," he said. "I have been home, in my house, with my daughter, who has been here every day for 3 years without asking for anything in return." He picked up the legal pad. "And I have spent 4 months writing down every time you doubted that." A long, ragged silence came from my brother's end. "The property walkthrough," my father continued, "has been canceled by my attorney. The county filing has been formally responded to. The bank is aware of the signature irregularity." He paused. "If there is anything else in motion that I don't know about yet, I am telling you now that I will find out about it, because that is what I do. I pay attention." My brother said nothing for a long time. Then, very quietly, almost too quiet to hear, he said, "I'm sorry, Dad." My father looked at the recorder. "I know you are," he said. "But sorry doesn't close a county filing." His voice stayed even. "Your attorney needs to withdraw the petition, today, not Friday." He picked up the recorder and stopped it. Then he sat back in his chair and looked out the window at the yard. The same yard he has looked at for 30 years. The tree my mother planted along the fence line that was a sapling when they moved in and is now taller than the house. He was quiet for a while. I didn't fill the silence. I had learned that from him. Some silences are working. You leave them alone. Finally, he said, "Your brother is not a bad man. He's a frightened one. He thought I was slipping away, and instead of asking me, he tried to secure what he could before it was gone." I looked at him. "Is that an excuse?" "No," he said. "It's a reason. They're different." He picked up the legal pad and closed it. The pen went inside the front cover. "What happens now?" I asked. "Dennis files the full response tomorrow." He looked at his hands. "The bank submits a fraud report on the signature attempt. The county petition will likely be withdrawn within the week, or dismissed if it isn't." He paused. "The property group will be notified that the listing inquiry was made without owner consent." He said it all flatly, matter-of-factly, like reading back an estimate. He'd been planning the resolution the same way he'd been planning everything else. Quietly, without making me watch him do it. I thought about the 4 months of entries in the legal pad, every blocked call at night, every piece of mail examined and written down, every inquiry tracked back to its source. My father sitting at that kitchen table every morning with his dark coffee and his worn slippers, watching and recording and waiting. Not because he didn't trust me to help him, because he didn't want me to have to carry the weight of proving it. He'd wanted it to already be proven by the time I needed to see it. He stood up slowly and picked up his coffee mug to carry it to the sink. "There's one more thing," he said without turning around. "What?" He set the mug in the sink and looked out the window above it. The folder from the attorney's office. The revised documents. He was quiet for a moment. I named you as executor, not because you've been here, because you're the one who never asked what you were getting. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, quite. He dried his hands on the dish towel hanging from the oven handle and turned around. He looked at me the way he looked at my mother sometimes, when she wasn't watching. Like he was making sure she was still there, still real, still his. Your brother called to tell you that you get nothing, he said. I know, I said. He shook his head once. He was wrong about that too. 3 days later, the county petition was withdrawn. The attorney filed the paperwork on a Thursday morning, the same day the property walkthrough had been scheduled. Dennis sent me a copy of the dismissal notice, and in the subject line he wrote only, "Done." My father framed nothing. He didn't make a speech. He put the legal pad in the drawer of his desk where he keeps things he might need to find again and went back to his morning routine. Coffee, the right shade of dark, weather on his tablet, the tree out the window growing the way it always has, unhurried, in no direction except up. That Friday, my brother called again. I answered. He asked if he could come visit in the spring. I said I'd ask my father. My father heard me and said yes without looking up from his tablet. One word. Just yes. I told my brother. There was a pause. Then he said, "Thank you." I hung up and sat back down across from my father. He glanced up at me briefly, then back at his tablet, like it was any morning. Like nothing had happened, and also like everything had. The way it is when things resolve the way they were always going to if you simply refused to panic and kept writing things down. My brother had called to take everything. He had called with a plan and a backup plan and a third plan behind that, all built in the wrong direction, all built on the assumption that my father had already stopped paying attention. He was wrong about that from the beginning. He was wrong about all of it. He lost not because I fought him. He lost because my father had been watching since March and had simply written the truth down in a $3 legal pad until there was enough of it to hold.